What if I told you that Hollywood, the dream factory that once gave us Star Wars, The Godfather, and Jurassic Park, is now running on empty? That behind the billion-dollar budgets, endless reboots, and flashy red carpets, lies a creative wasteland? A system so broken that the world's richest studios would rather remake the same movie 5 times than take a single risk. Stick around, because today, we're peeling back the curtain on why Hollywood is creatively bankrupt. And before we dive into the collapse of the industry's imagination, make sure you subscribe to our channel, because the truth Hollywood doesn't want you to hear is just getting started. Once upon a time, Hollywood was a daring playground for visionaries, a place where bold, unconventional ideas weren't just tolerated, they were celebrated. Directors like Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, and Stanley Kubrick didn't just make movies, they redefined the very language of cinema. Jaws didn't rely on a formula, it built tension from silence, anticipation, and instinctive fear, proving that audiences could be terrified and enthralled without bombarding them with constant action. Star Wars wasn't a guaranteed hit, it was a gamble on untested storytelling, a space opera that risked alienating viewers with its epic scope and imaginative world-building. Every frame was a calculated risk, every decision an experiment in cinematic daring. Back then, studios believed in directors' instincts and trusted them to lead audiences into unknown territory, even if the result was controversial or financially uncertain. Originality was currency, and boldness was rewarded. Fast forward to today, and that fearless spirit has evaporated like mist under the harsh lights of corporate oversight. The gamble has been replaced with the formula, creativity shackled by data analytics, test screenings, and shareholder demands. Studios no longer ask, what story deserves to be told, but instead, what story will guarantee the maximum return? Every idea is dissected, overanalyzed, and sanitized until its edges are smoothed into marketable blandness. Directors are no longer visionaries, they are managers of brands worth hundreds of millions, babysitting intellectual properties that are meticulously engineered to appeal to the widest, safest possible audience. The artistry of storytelling is sacrificed at the altar of predictability, resulting in films that look expensive, glittering with CGI and star-studded casts, yet feel hollow, formulaic, and lifeless. The tension, the unpredictability, the thrill of discovering something genuinely new, these have all been replaced by recycled plots, safe jokes, and overused visual spectacles. Hollywood doesn't want artists anymore, it wants caretakers, accountants of imagination, individuals who can shepherd existing franchises through pre-tested scripts, spreadsheets, and focus groups without upsetting the delicate machinery of profit. Creativity, once the beating heart of the industry, has been reduced to a checkbox in corporate strategy meetings, and the audience can feel it. Every blockbuster now carries the unmistakable scent of a calculated, risk-averse product, meticulously polished for mass consumption but utterly devoid of the daring spirit that once made cinema an arena of dreams and audacity. The golden age wasn't golden because of money, it was golden because of courage, vision, and the relentless pursuit of the unknown. Today, Hollywood trades that courage for safety, and the result is a sterile empire of spectacles with no soul, leaving viewers to wonder if the magic ever existed at all. Let's talk about money, the one thing Hollywood treats as both a weapon and a crutch. Netflix as the electric state, rumored to have cost $320 million, barely registered with audiences, disappearing almost immediately into obscurity. Disney's John Carter sank $200 million into the abyss, derailing careers and leaving executives scrambling for answers. The Lone Ranger repeated the pattern, bloated budgets, inflated expectations, and catastrophic losses. Even Marvel, the crown jewel of modern blockbusters, wasn't immune. The Marvels reportedly lost $200 million, a reminder that even brand recognition can't save a creatively bankrupt production. What's striking in all these disasters isn't just the amount of money spent, it's how money has become a substitute for vision. Bigger budgets no longer equate to better storytelling. In fact, they often do the opposite. The more cash thrown at a film, the more corporate interference, the more pre-tested focus group adjustments, and the more layers of CGI designed to wow rather than to serve the story. Directors and writers, once the heartbeat of a project, are now treated as middle managers whose sole purpose is to shepherd massive IPs from conception to spreadsheet-approved release. Creativity is seen as a liability, and risk is the enemy. Instead of investing in originality, studios invest in spectacle, endless reshoots, expensive set pieces, and marketing campaigns engineered to seduce the widest audience possible, regardless of narrative coherence. The results are films that look glossy, shiny, and impressive, but feel hollow, derivative, and emotionally inert. Audiences are left watching movies that cost hundreds of millions yet fail to resonate, failing to inspire, failing to stay in memory beyond the trailer. Hollywood has reached a point where money has become a double-edged sword. It allows the illusion of scale and ambition, but it actively stifles the very creativity that made cinema impactful in the first place. The paradox is clear: the more Hollywood spends, the less imaginative it becomes. Blockbusters are no longer adventures into storytelling. They are calculated experiments in financial safety, where success is measured in metrics rather than moments, and artistry is sacrificed for projections. The consequence is an era defined by financial excess and artistic scarcity, films that dazzle in appearance but die in the hearts of audiences, leaving a trail of flops that prove money alone cannot buy creativity. No studio in Hollywood illustrates the collapse of creativity better than Disney. Once hailed as the gold standard of innovation, a place where original ideas and bold storytelling set the benchmark for the entire industry, Disney has now become the poster child for recycling, nostalgia, and risk aversion. Where it once dared to take chances on untested stories, it now clings desperately to established properties, sequels, and remakes, seemingly afraid to step outside the safety of its own historical IP. The failures are numerous and telling. Take John Carter, a film adapted from a beloved sci-fi series, which lost an estimated $200 million in buried careers, highlighting the limits of brand trust when execution falters. Then came The Lone Ranger, another attempt to revive a forgotten IP, which also crashed spectacularly, proving that resurrecting old ideas without innovation is a recipe for disaster. In a different vein, Disney leaned heavily on Marvel, which became a cash-printing machine for the studio. For years, the MCU masked Disney's creative stagnation, with billions in revenue and record-breaking box office numbers creating the illusion of invincibility. But the cracks eventually appeared. The Marvels revealed the inevitable truth: even superheroes are not immune to fatigue, especially when creativity is replaced with formulaic storytelling and franchise maintenance. Audiences are growing wise to the repetition, recognizing that while the worlds may change, the storytelling beats remain stubbornly familiar, predictable, and ultimately uninspiring. Meanwhile, Disney has flooded the market with live-action remakes of its animated classics, The Lion King, Mulan, Pinocchio, and many more. While some of these films were commercially successful, none managed to capture the emotional resonance, magic, or originality of their animated predecessors. The artistry, charm, and innovation that made the originals timeless were lost in translation, replaced with glossy visuals, forced star power, and overcalculated marketing campaigns. Every remake, reboot, or sequel, no matter how financially profitable, chips away at Disney's creative soul, leaving a hollow shell of its former glory. The studio is trapped in a cycle. Nostalgia fuels short-term profits, yet long-term vision and risk-taking are abandoned. Each decision prioritizes the bottom line over daring storytelling, signaling a troubling shift where innovation is sacrificed for comfort, audiences are pacified rather than challenged, and Disney's once unassailable identity as a pioneer of imagination is steadily eroding. Today, the magic survives only in memory, as the studio's output increasingly resembles a corporate machine rather than the daring creative engine it once was. Marvel was once a cinematic revolution, a force that reshaped the modern blockbuster and turned superheroes into global icons. Iron Man wasn't just a film, it was the spark that ignited the Marvel Cinematic Universe, introducing audiences to interconnected storytelling, layered characters, and stakes that felt real despite the fantastical worlds. The Avengers brought together multiple storylines into a single, electrifying event, while Infinity War and Endgame elevated the medium to unprecedented levels, delivering narrative payoff and emotional resonance rarely seen in blockbuster franchises. For a brief window, Marvel represented originality, ambition, and meticulous planning, proving that a carefully constructed cinematic universe could captivate audiences for over a decade while still feeling fresh and engaging. But that era of ingenuity didn't last. Marvel, once a playground for visionaries, gradually became a machine, a meticulously calculated production line designed to extract maximum profit while minimizing creative risk. Today, the MCU is a formulaic assembly of expected beats, the same quippy jokes, the same CGI-heavy battles, the same predictable arcs where heroes triumph without real danger or surprise. Films are greenlit based on brand recognition and merchandising potential rather than story quality or narrative innovation. The Marvels is a textbook example. It didn't fail because audiences dislike superheroes, it failed because audiences already knew exactly what they were going to get. Every twist was predictable, every joke rehearsed, and every dramatic moment diluted by a sense of corporate safety. The excitement, tension, and awe that characterized the early MCU have been replaced with a sense of obligation. Audiences watch not because they are inspired, but because it is expected. When a brand becomes more important than the story it tells, the magic inevitably dies. Characters are reduced to icons rather than people, worlds become backdrops rather than living environments, and narratives bend to market research rather than artistic vision. The MCU, once a triumph of cinematic imagination, now feels like a cautionary tale. The moment creativity is sacrificed for brand maintenance, even the most beloved franchises lose their luster. The very elements that once defined Marvel, risk, surprise, and emotional resonance, have been replaced by a relentless pursuit of continuity, crossovers, and monetization. What remains is spectacle without stakes, entertainment without engagement, and a universe that is massive in scale but hollow at its core. Audiences can see it, feel it, and increasingly, they're disengaging, proving that no amount of marketing, hype, or CGI can replace the thrill of a story that truly takes risks and dares to be original. Hollywood's creative bankruptcy isn't confined to Disney or Marvel, it's an industry-wide epidemic that has infected nearly every major studio. Take Warner Brothers, for example. Attempting to replicate Marvel's unprecedented success, they launched the DC Extended Universe with films like Batman v Superman, Justice League, and Suicide Squad. Ambition alone couldn't save these projects. Rushed production schedules, inconsistent creative visions, and constant executive interference led to tonal confusion and narrative incoherence. Audiences noticed, and critical reception was brutal. The attempt to manufacture a shared universe, rather than organically build engaging stories, backfired spectacularly, leaving Warner Brothers scrambling to patch together a cohesive franchise from fragments of failed experiments. Meanwhile, Sony stumbled spectacularly with Morbius, a film that became infamous not for its storytelling or acting but for its meme-worthy status online. Despite repeated attempts to revitalize interest, the film flopped at the box office, highlighting the growing disconnect between studio expectations and audience engagement. It became a glaring reminder that brand recognition alone can no longer mask uninspired writing, lackluster direction, or an absence of genuine cinematic vision. Audiences are increasingly rejecting films that feel manufactured rather than crafted with care. Universal tried to do the same with its ambitious, dark universe, hoping to create a shared monster universe akin to Marvel's formula. The Mummy reboot starring Tom Cruise was supposed to kickstart this cinematic empire, but it failed both critically and commercially. Even with a major star attached and massive marketing campaigns, the film was unable to capture the imagination of audiences, leaving Universal's vision abandoned before it ever truly began. The pattern is clear: every studio is chasing the next shared universe, every executive seeks franchises that promise predictable returns, and very few are willing to invest in original stories or riskier concepts. The result is an endless parade of reboots, sequels, and derivative cinematic universes, designed to be safe, marketable, and easily monetized. Audiences can sense the formula from the very first frame: the calculated beats, the pre-tested humor, the over-reliance on visual effects, and the absence of risk or innovation. Spectators have grown savvier, more discerning, and less willing to invest time or money in films that prioritize corporate interests over storytelling. Hollywood has become a factory of content rather than a cradle of imagination, and in this climate, originality struggles to survive. Every studio, no matter how prestigious, is vulnerable to the same pitfalls: the pursuit of profit over creativity, the fetishization of franchises, and the systematic erasure of artistic ambition. As a result, even films with massive budgets, A-list actors, and cutting-edge technology often fail to resonate, leaving audiences disappointed and the studios wondering why their billion-dollar bets continue to collapse despite all the market research and hype. The problem isn't talent, nor is it technology, it's the system itself. Modern Hollywood isn't designed to make great films, it's designed to make safe investments. Creativity, once the lifeblood of cinema, has become a liability, something that executives view with suspicion and shareholders fear as too unpredictable. Risk is the enemy, and when every decision is filtered through profit projections, focus groups, and test screenings, artistry is inevitably sacrificed. This is why mid-budget films, the thrillers, dramas, comedies, and original sci-fi projects that used to dominate the cultural landscape, have all but disappeared. Movies that could take chances, explore unique perspectives, and push the boundaries of storytelling are now almost non-existent in mainstream cinema. The industry has polarized into two extremes: tiny, underfunded indie films that struggle to find audiences, and massive, bloated blockbusters engineered to appeal to the widest possible demographic. These blockbusters are designed to please everyone and, in doing so, end up resonating with almost no one. Studios prioritize brand recognition, merchandising potential, and guaranteed franchise longevity over originality or emotional impact. The nuance, risk, and daring ideas that once made cinema memorable are replaced with meticulously calculated spectacle, films that dazzle with visuals but leave audiences emotionally unfulfilled. Creativity has been relegated to the margins, while content churned out by the factory of Hollywood is treated as disposable. It's no longer about storytelling, character development, or thematic resonance. It's about producing films at scale, keeping streaming platforms full, and feeding the insatiable appetite for constant content.
The problem is systemic. For years, studios have prioritized brand protection and profit predictability over vision, leading to a conveyor belt of sequels, reboots, and cinematic universes that exhaust audiences rather than excite them. Safe decisions produce films that may make money in the short term, but they rarely leave a lasting impact. The moment studios abandon this formula and trust the instincts of bold creators, the magic can return. Original stories, experimental narratives, and daring concepts can once again find their place on screens big and small, breaking through the monotony of corporate-approved content. Audiences have demonstrated they are hungry for this kind of cinema. Independent films, international releases, and streaming-first projects prove that daring, authentic storytelling still resonates and can achieve both critical and commercial success. Hollywood's survival depends on embracing uncertainty, not avoiding it. It requires a cultural shift within the studios, valuing vision over spreadsheets, originality over formulas, and human creativity over predictable spectacle. If filmmakers are empowered to tell stories that matter, to take narrative risks, and to challenge the status quo, then Hollywood can reclaim its soul. Otherwise, it will continue producing forgettable failures, content that dazzles superficially but fades instantly from memory. The industry stands at a crossroads: continue down the safe, sterile path of corporate-approved mediocrity, or dare to innovate, to experiment, and to remember why cinema exists in the first place. Boldness, risk, and imagination are not optional, they are essential. Only by trusting in creativity once more can Hollywood hope to produce films that move, inspire, and endure, proving that the golden age of innovation was not a relic of the past but a blueprint for the future. Hollywood's creative bankruptcy isn't just about money, it's about vision. The industry that once inspired the world has become addicted to safety, and in that addiction, it's losing its relevance. But the future of film doesn't belong to corporations, it belongs to creators. And if you want to be part of the movement that demands better stories, better risks, and better films, then make sure you subscribe to our channel, because this conversation is only getting started. Thank you for watching. Now tell me in the comments, what's the last Hollywood film that truly felt original to you?